What has happened to this division and where are all the fighters? From the champion Ilia Topuria to pretty much every top contender, it's been a ghost town. This used to be the UFC's premier division. There has been a massive shift in the activity of this weight class. It was the golden division and now it's part-time. Well, we do have one answer as to why Ilia Topuria is not fighting, and perhaps with Dan Hooker as well, who's had multiple hand injuries this year. There has never been an easier time to get a title shot than in the current lightweight division. These guys just have to fight somebody. If Arman, Gaethje, or Paddy just get another win, they could leapfrog everybody to be the next in line, but they're just not doing that. The UFC needs to get something going here, as this weight class is being completely forgotten about. So Ilia Topuria has fought once this year in June, and that was a first round knockout against Charles Oliveira, a fight where he suffered pretty much no damage. He got hit by one elbow, but that shouldn't be enough to sideline him for the rest of the year. He left Charles like this. And Charles is still fighting before him. We should be hearing about Ilia's next fight, but that news seems bleak because the reason as to why Ilia's only fought once this year is due to the arrival of his brother. Alexander Topuria also made his debut this year, and he's going to be fighting yet again in November. And both him and his brother have said that they refuse to fight if the other has a schedule. So because Alexander Topuria fought twice this year, it's pretty much going to limit Ilia to one fight. And being the helping hand of his brother takes priority in that. So because Alexander's fighting in November against Beksa Almakhan, which is an insanely good fight, that indicates Ilia's sidelining for the rest of the year. So the champion is going to be fighting next year, which is so crazy, coming off a first round knockout win a few months ago. And Ilia sitting out is going to cause a chain effect for other fighters to sit out as well, because all of them are waiting on Ilia, except Arman, apparently. So Arman's the number one contender, and he's been focused on completing all of his side quests and waiting on an opponent from the UFC, but at the same time, it'd be great if he just takes any fight at this point, because this whole waiting out game is not to the best interest for the fans, as well as for their own careers. Most of these guys are in their prime. Time is of the essence, and they need to be scheduling as many fights as they can, because as everybody's in the waiting room, the first one to step up against anybody is already in a beneficial position. I believe if Arman at this point takes a Gamrot fight or a Dariush fight even, it would put him ahead of the pack. And because Ilia is going to fight next year, they have the time to do it, right? Get a fight in November, get a fight in December. It's perfect timing. Now, Arman's making a lot of public callouts, but it'd just be great to see him get a fight and not grapple with Benson Henderson, who is an ancient relic at this point. I mean, the fight Prime versus Prime would have been great, but that's just not possible. So that's the reason why Arman hasn't fought yet. And Arman's last fight was in April of last year. Then we have Max Holloway. Now, Max fought Dustin 2 months ago and suffered a hand injury there. He's probably going to be healthy within a month or two from now, I would guess. And if not, he's probably already healthy. I don't expect Max Holloway to wait around. Max Holloway seems to be always up for a challenge, but the only issue with that is who is there for him to fight. Now, if he's healthy, let's do him versus Arman in November or December. Let's get one of these fights going. So hopefully Max becomes the most active top lightweight contender. But he's probably going to be outdone by Charles Oliveira, who is the next contender. And Charles suffered a knockout loss to Ilia Topuria in June. Crazy enough, he is on the return before Ilia is. Fighting in Brazil in November is precisely why everyone loves Charles. He was quite an active champion and carries that frequency as a contender. Now his opponent, Rafael Fiziev, has pulled out. And there's been a lot of talks as to who is going to fill in as the replacement. Gamrot has been the widely accepted and anticipated short notice opponent, but Gamrot shared some news about allegedly Charles Oliveira not wanting the fight, or at least that was the implication. And I hope that's not the case, bro. Oliveira said a bunch of fighters have turned him down. They talk publicly, but then when the fight is offered, they have all the excuses in the world to reject the fight. He may have been talking about Benoit Saint-Denis, who specifically said he would fill in for that fight. He said if Charles or Fiziev pull out, he will be ready to fill in. Well, Fiziev pulled out, and now BSD has backtracked on that completely. He claims that Charles deserves a full camp of respect. Whatever that means, dude. He's one of the top contenders. Why would you turn that down? And if he is who Charles was speaking of, that means BSD was offered the fight, according to Charles. Well, we'll see what happens there. I'll make a video of any updates between the Oliveira and Gamrot talks. But then there's Justin Gaethje, who's literally ducking. He is unshakably sitting on his ranking, and he refuses to move, unless it's for a title fight or a lucrative fight. Well, he pretty much said it himself. He's going to duck everybody else. There's nobody for him to fight, which is absolutely insane. I believe any fighter with that sort of mentality should not get a title shot unless they are the next one in line for a title shot, which he is not. So Justin Gaethje fought in March of this year, and it seems like he's not going to fight for the rest of it. So he has completely shifted his trajectory as a fighter. A guy who was willing to fight pretty much anybody that the UFC would give him, as long as he got a full training camp for preparation. But now that isn't enough for him to step into the octagon. Insane. But then the next contender is Dan Hooker, who last fought in August of last year, where he won a split decision against Mateusz Gamrot. And his lore has been all about hand injuries. He's had 2 of them this year, so he's incapable of fighting, but is hopeful to at least fight later. He's looking at November, which means he could get a fight scheduled very soon. I don't see Dan Hooker being the type of fighter who just waits around when he's healthy. Multiple hand injuries, so he's incapable of fighting, which is understandable. Injuries are a part of the game. At least he's not turning down opponents and refusing to fight. So I don't know when Dan Hooker is going to be healthy, but hopefully soon, because he seems to be a fighter who will take up any fight. I wonder if those hand injuries will impact his fighting style in some way. Knowing him, it probably excites him to punch even harder now. Dan Hooker is a madman. And then we go to Paddy Pimblett, who fought in April of this year. He fought once in 2024, once in 2023, but then 3 times in 2022. For the last 3 years, he's been averaging 1 fight annually. I don't know why he hasn't fought since. There doesn't seem to be much of an excuse except possibly him waiting out for a championship fight. He probably believes that Ilia will choose him as the next matchup, so it would be reasonable to just sit out and wait for that prestigious money fight. But he's just waiting around like everybody else. And he's the number 7 contender. Excluding Islam, he's number 6, and he should not be getting a title shot at all. But who knows? We'll see. It's the biggest money fight of the division, so there is a financial understanding as to why Paddy would wait out. But it's just not great for the division or the fans. And then there's Mateusz Gamrot, who's calling out everybody. He accepted a fight with Arman Tsarukyan. Now he wants to fight Charles Oliveira, and he fully embodies the fighter spirit. I was going to say mentality, but his fighting style isn't necessarily the most exciting. But this guy will step forward and fight anybody, ranked or non-ranked. But of course, in his position, he should not be fighting anybody else who's unranked. And hopefully they give him the Oliveira matchup. This guy took a senseless, non-ranked fight against Ludovic Klein while being ranked in the top 10. Of course, defeating him. And that's just the type of fighter that Mateusz Gamrot is. We wish the other fighters were able to share that same spirit. They used to, but not these days. And then Beneil Dariush just had a matchup. Rafael Fiziev just pulled out. Renato Moicano says that he wants to fight Charles, but I don't know if Charles was also talking about him. Who knows, but Renato Moicano is throwing his name in the hat as well. But the scenes of Moicano fighting Charles Oliveira at home. I mean, Moicano is also from Brazil, but he had a similar experience facing off with a Brazilian king. And the entire arena was against him, sadly. But I wonder if it would be the same thing with Charles. I mean, him and Alex Pereira are the biggest Brazilian stars since, Anderson Silva. There were some talks that he refused to fight Manuel Torres, which is understandable. He shouldn't have to fight someone like Torres, but that would have been a fascinating fight if Moicano was like Gamrot and carelessly took it. I think a Torres and Moicano fight would have been a pretty good one. Moicano's solid grappling versus the powerful striking of Torres, that would have been interesting. But moving to Michael Chandler. Chandler lost to Paddy Pimblett. It seems like he is revisiting the Conor McGregor fight, or at least hoping to. He is still holding out for it and will never let go. You know what? The persistence of Michael Chandler is admirable. This guy will never give up on Conor. Ever. It might happen, we'll see. It looks like all parties are optimistic for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, but we will see. At this point in Chandler's career, if it's a possibility, might as well just sit around for it, BSD turned down the Charles Oliveira fight, insane. The guy's ranked number 13, and he turned down a number 4 contender. Many fighters would take the Oliveira fight in a heartbeat, or at least I would think so. BSD just fought recently, though. Grant Dawson fought in January of this year, and he was supposed to fight Yoel Alvarez last month, but the fight got canceled for undisclosed reasons. It was led to believe that it had some sort of weight class issue, and Grant Dawson had a complete misunderstanding of the fight itself. So it was some wackiness going on with that one. And then there's Mauricio Hufi, who got destroyed by BSD, and it's understandable why he's not going to fight for potentially the rest of the year. But as reasonable as that is, Mauricio Hufi has expressed fighting once more this year so he can rebound from the loss. He didn't pick an opponent, so it seems like he's willing to fight all comers, which is, again, a mentality I wish the rest of the lightweight division had. So that is the current state of the lightweight division, distinct of what it used to be. There's still some good fighters there, and Ilia fighting once a year is going to be a drag. Ilia is such an exciting fighter. It is dissatisfying to see him to only fight once a year. We have like Merab Dvalishvili, who is willing to fight 4 times this year. He's already thinking ahead of Corey Sandhagen. Ilia doesn't even know who he's fighting. Credit to him, he said he's just waiting on the UFC's call. And the only thing I would say is, as everybody's in the waiting room, these guys should be taking a fight just to put themselves on the forefront. And that especially goes for Arman Tsarukyan. Just take a fight. Even if it's against Renato Moicano or something, just take a fight. Nobody else is fighting. If Max Holloway's willing and healthy, then that is the next matchup, right? Just take that matchup, try to get it done this year, so you can line up a fight with Ilia Topuria early next year or something. That would be ideal. Hopefully that gets formulated soon. And what do you guys think of this lightweight division now? How do you compare it to the previous eras? And which do you prefer? I honestly think lightweight is probably the worst it's been since like the ancient BJ Penn days. Like, this is worse than Islam's era, Khabib's era, the RDA Eddie Alvarez and Conor era, than the Pettis and Benson Henderson era. All of those eras are better than now, bro. It's crazy. And it's not a lack of skill. It's just that it's an unappealing structure of the division right now. Everybody's picking and choosing. Nobody's fighting. That division is slower than every other in the UFC currently. Hopefully we get some updates on the Oliveira fight, and I hope one of these top contenders is willing to step forward for a fight.